people just want to be heard. You know, this is what America is all about, is people like me standing in front of you, being one of you, and listening, and then trying to represent your interests in Washington, D.C.
With us right now is Bill Sorem. Bill works for the Uptake. He's a cameraman, and he's all over town. If there's a protest or a demonstration, you usually see Bill there, which makes him very, very popular.
Not as often as you used to be.
Really? Okay.
and I'm a volunteer.
And you're a volunteer as well.
Highly paid volunteer.
Yeah. Well, Bill does a lot of things. Recently, he attended the very first public meeting of a guy who wants to run against Eric Paulsen in the 3rd Congressional District. That gentleman's name is Dean Phillips. You were there with your camera, you talked with Dean personally, you videotaped his presentation. Tell us about it.
Well, this was a town hall, Dean's first town hall, and there have been several town halls organized in Eric Paulsen District, none of which a congressman has chosen to attend.
Last-minute robocalls for phone meetings are not sufficient. We need real, in-person, timely communicated meetings. We can give you feedback and help inform your decisions while you represent us in Washington, D.C. And
I think that representation, first and foremost, starts with listening. And in this case, Representative Paulsen refuses to host town hall meetings. And it's one of the reasons I'm running. The number of people that simply wish to have their voices heard, and he appears unwilling to do so, I believe that's not just a vulnerability, it's a responsibility of representation. That certainly is one. And then the voting record over the last number of months in particular has gravely concerned me and many in the district. It's a moderate, highly educated district, and his votes are, in my estimation, not aligned with the principles and values of the 3rd. And I intend to present mine, and we'll see where that leads us.
I consider myself a Democrat, and I have to admit, I voted for Eric Paulsen.
Okay.
But I'm not a supporter of him now.
Why? Where do you think?
He doesn't really care about us. He sits there in his office, and that's the way it goes.
Well, I'm interested in hearing what Dean has to say. I had a chance to meet him a few years ago, and I was very excited to hear that he was considering running for Congress.
There were, I estimate, 450 people jammed into the room in Southdale Library.
Southdale Library in Edina.
Right. Okay. And Dean's a young man. I'm not sure of his exact age. He went to school in Edina and then Blake School, and graduated from Brown.
My birth father, Artie Peffer, went to the University of Minnesota on an ROTC scholarship. He grew up in St. Paul, lost his dad when he was 10 years old. His mother worked at a department store to make ends meet. And the ROTC scholarship afforded him the tuition he needed to attend the U and then law school at the U. And he chose to serve his country because of that ROTC scholarship instead of deferring, and was killed in the Vietnam War in July of 1969 when I was 6 months old, leaving my mother, Dee Dee, who's in the room tonight, a widow, and me without a father. And we moved in with my great-grandparents in St. Paul, and for 2 years, that's how our life was. Until my mother remarried Eddie Phillips, and someone's got to have the phone.
And his mother married a Phillips distilled spirits distributor who has done very well. They've recently sold it for quite a lot of money. And Dean's grandmother is Dear Abby.
And in 1980, John Anderson, a Republican congressman from Illinois, ran for president as an independent in 1980. And lo and behold, he came to my school and spoke when I was 11 years old. And I remember a couple things in his speech. I didn't know much of what he's talking about, but he said a couple things that still to this day inspire me, and that's one reason I'm here. He said you need independence in government. Without independence, parties take over and democracy is ruined. And he said money in politics is a great corrupter of our democracy and needs to be addressed.
Yes.
And And that evening I went to dinner with my family downtown Minneapolis, my great-grandparents, my grandparents, my parents, my brother, and me. And my grandmother, as some of you know, was Dear Abby. And she was fond of giving me advice. More than you could imagine. And she turned to me and said, "How's your day today?" And I said, "Oh, it was so amazing, Grandma. This guy who's running for president of the United States came and spoke to our class. You couldn't believe it." And she said, "Before you continue, are you a Democrat or Republican?" I said, I don't know, Grandma. I'm 11 years old. I don't know. And she said, "Dean, you're a Democrat." So here having anointed me a Democrat in 1980, and here I am today. But back to growing up, in this family, there are two intersections in our family that are important: business and philanthropy. We are a family that believes business is a means to an end. That's how I was raised. That a job of a business isn't just to return profit to the owners. It is to recognize that there are a lot of people that made that possible. First of all, paying taxes. Without streets and without education and without educated people, it doesn't matter. Anybody that says I'm a self-made, anything is lying.
Now, Bill, I have a question. Does Dean Phillips have the licks to actually campaign in the 3rd Congressional District? I know he lives in Deephaven, so he knows the 3rd. I know he hasn't voted for Paulsen, but does he have the licks, person to person?
Well, we'll see, but I think so. He's energetic, and he's one of the best listeners I've encountered, because he said, I don't know everything. Tell me, help me. And he's also said if you get 2 people in the same room that agree with each other, you only need 1.
So he has a sense of humor then.
Oh, tremendous sense of humor. And he's really comes across as a very sincere guy, and he's told people, I'm going to go around and knock doors all over the place.
And after the last election in November, I was troubled, but hopeful. I think it's a responsibility of all Americans to give a new president a chance, which I did. But the last number of months, and particularly the last number of weeks, have gravely concerned me about the direction of our country. And in particular, our representative in the 3rd District here, Eric Paulsen, I believe his votes, while he's not Donald Trump, his votes are almost perfectly aligned with his. And I believe that's a misrepresentation of this district, and I intend to point that out and, most importantly, represent this district
You know
in the
the
way.
last time a Democrat won this seat?
1958.
He also is aware of the last time a Democrat was elected in this district,
Which was when?
1958.
Were you born? Yeah.
I was born. I wasn't living in the district, but it's been that long. And the Democratic Party has every election year brought a candidate forward. The candidate loses, and then they go away, and then they bring a new one.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the same candidate has never run twice. And so yeah, I think he does have the legs. We'll see. He may run out of gas. It's a tough.
Well, at least he's
tough
starting
run.
on time, not later next year.
I've been so amazed by the number of Republicans that have reached out to me and are going to support this effort. And I intend to represent this entire district, no matter how successful I might be if I win. I recognize that almost half of the population probably will not have voted for me. It is a responsibility and representation to listen to those voices. I don't want to talk a whole lot about Donald Trump tonight, but I do want to recognize something even more important than him, because he was a vehicle. People are angry, and some of you are, and for good reason, I believe. But this election was a wake-up call, and that there's a lot of people hurting out there. I'd love to listen. No party has a monopoly on ideas. I intend to listen to all parties and all sides. I'm hearing a lot of talk about healthcare, a lot of talk about this president and his administration. Money in politics is a great corrupter of our democracy, and perhaps the most shameful element, again, bipartisan shame, is that only slightly over half of the eligible voters in this country made the choice to vote in what is clearly the most important election that this country probably has ever had in its history in the last election. Only 50% in a democracy. So your question about getting people to care is really, really important. I'll be the first to tell you, I would rather lose this election with 90% turnout than win it with 40. And when I walked up here tonight, there were about 10 protesters with signs. You may have seen them. Yeah. And, I went up to each of them, I read their signs, I asked a couple questions, and I said hello, and I thanked them, because they care. That's that great Minnesota tradition of an outsider who cared enough.
Well, he estimates that this is going to be a $20 million campaign. Paulsen already has a $2 million war chest, and Dean says he has no intention of self-financing it. On the other hand, he has told Washington that he wants to run his own campaign. If they want to send money, that's fine.
Okay.
But no strings attached. He's going to run his own campaign. He's hired a Minnesota advertising agency, and it's going to be a locally run operation. And yes, he'll probably put some of his own money into it.
When I was adopted in this family and brought up, so fortunate, I started my life right here in Edina. We moved to Edina. I went to Edina Highland School. I went to this library quite regularly, so to come back tonight as a candidate for U.S. Congress is particularly special, because this is where I came to not do my homework. I think I have a couple teachers in the room too. And then I went to, my parents moved me over to the Blake School in Hopkins when I was a middle schooler. Then graduated from Brown University with my BA in Urban Studies, and then I received my MBA from the University of Minnesota.
And what's your political experience?
My political experience includes supporting Republicans and independents, and mostly Democrats. I'm a passionate Democrat. When I was in college, I interned on Capitol Hill for Senator Patrick Leahy, a Democrat from Vermont who's still serving as a senator and an extraordinary man. And he shared with us, his interns that year, how government works. He mentored us and he inspired us. And I left that experience knowing that if the chance one day arose and the need to serve, that I would be willing to stand up. And I feel that that's the time right now.
And for those of us who didn't grow up here, who grew up in factory towns that are now decrepit.
I'm Emily McCarthy. I'm from Brooklyn Park. I've got a lot of questions.
I wrote to Eric Paulsen about my concerns for climate change.
So I will preface by saying that I am incredibly pro-choice, but I also
I'm a professor in the MLIS program. I'm teaching future children's librarians to be anti-racist in their work.
My name is Dottie Gilkison, Bloomington. How do we get the money out of politics?
Dean Phillips seems to have an awful lot covered at the get-go. So we went to Brown, a Ivy League school. Eric Paulsen and I went to St. Olaf. Why should I vote for this guy?
I think he's the best listener that we've had running as a candidate. I've known a number of the other candidates, and this guy will listen.
Oldies are pretty good at listening, too. No?
Sometimes.
Okay. Dean Phillips has a congressional campaign website. It's phillipsforcongress.org. phillipsforcongress.org. He also has a place on Facebook. Video of Dean Phillips' first town meeting was lensed by Bill Sorem. The entire meeting can be seen at the Uptake.org. The Uptake is an independent citizen news service based in the Twin Cities.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.